when I was younger, I was not a fan of history. And to be honest, I wasn't a fan of history until I was listening to Tim Ferriss's podcast. And I think it was Mike Rowe, one of his early episodes. Tim Ferriss recommended, it was just talking to Mike Rowe, and he said that he had been listening to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History podcast. The episode he referenced was Prophets of Doom, which is a great episode about the Anabaptist Revolution in Europe and the Munster Rebellion. And Mike Rowe, I believe it was him, was saying that, oh, have you heard Blueprint for Armageddon? Blueprint for Armageddon is a 6-part, totally epic series on World War I and the lead up to World War I. The first episode, which is hours long, each episode is hours long. The first episode talks about the lead up to and events immediately starting World War I. All the complex web of alliances, the plan that the Germans had to wipe out France before the Russians could get their forces kind of deployed and ready to go because they were fighting a battle on two fronts. Everything that was going on there. And there was this sense in Europe, from what I got from the Dan Carlin's telling of the podcast, that things were off. Everyone kind of knew things were off. Everyone in the know knew that things were off, and things were kind of priming up for this battle, and pressure was increasing, and everyone knew that there had to be this release at some point, because the longer you went without a release, the worse it was going to be. It's a great podcast series. It's behind Dan Carlin's paywall, and it is worth every penny. I got it when it was free. He does his most recent ones for free, and then after some time they go behind a paywall. But I mean, I would pay for it again in a heartbeat. I've gotten it for friends as gifts. It's a great series. Listen to it. I was not really a fan of history until I started listening to his Blueprint for Armageddon podcast, and then I listened to Prophets of Doom, which has a very similar kind of feeling to it. It's a much shorter podcast. But recently, I've been looking at history, looking at things around, and hoping, keeping my fingers crossed, that history doesn't repeat. However, history does repeat on occasion. Not directly, but there is a cycle that happens. After World War II, the United States and the USSR got into a Cold War, and that Cold War continued for a very long time. My favorite podcast, again, from Dan Carlin, my absolute favorite one, is Destroyer of Worlds. It's the episode talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis and kind of the lead up of everything to that point, and kind of the fact that it didn't happen, and where do we kind of go from here? What is reality? I made a video, I will link to it down below, of kind of my nuclear fears and rumination on nuclear war as a possibility of something that we, society, will have to endure. But on a much more small level, there are people on edge around us. Nuclear war is something that we're like, you know what? It's a very bad situation. Globally, it would be just, kind of a resetting of stuff. And no one who is alive would be doing well when that happens. Even a small nuclear war. A couple of days ago, I was in McDonald's, and my son, we sit down at a McDonald's, place our order, put our little number on the table, and the guy comes over with our food 10 minutes later, and he's talking really nice, and my son just says to him, and my son has a different social filter, he says to the guy, "Hey, you seem really nice," and the guy, younger kid, just stops, and there's a genuine look of kind of like surprise and appreciation on his face, and turns to my son and says, "Hey, thank you, that really means a lot. We have to be nice to each other nowadays." I don't know this guy's background. I don't know anything about him. But I agree with him. We have to be nice to each other. We don't have to pick fights. We don't have to road rage. We don't have to make our opinion known to people if we don't approve of certain decisions that they have. I don't know why there's a lot of people politically who are like, I don't think that your choice of, how you express your gender or whatever is appropriate. Therefore, I'm going to make it. It's like, come on, guys. It's someone else's business. Deal with it. I guess that's the point of this video. Just be nice. People are going through a lot. But we just had the New Year roll around. And I just wanted to read something from one of my favorite fiction books, Stephen King's Wizard and Glass. This is the 4th entry in the Dark Tower series. I wasn't much of a reader growing up, but in 2020 I started reading a lot. I got an Audible subscription, and I just started blasting through books. I've read a couple hundred since 2020, and I've reread through Audible and in physical form Stephen King's Dark Tower series a couple of times already, and I really enjoy it. But in Wizard and Glass, there's a town, if you haven't read, I'm not going to give spoilers, but there's a town called Magus. And Wizard and Glass, pretty much the whole book is a flashback to before the world had moved on, or the world was moving on. It was beginning to move on, which is kind of the sense of like things going topsy-turvy. Everyone in Magus has the sense that something's going on, and you as the reader know that things are going to get bad really soon. But everyone there is just aware of it. Oblivious isn't the right word. They're aware of it, but they don't really have this grasp on how bad it's really going to be. And I feel, I'm worried that we are kind of there now. This bit is from, I think it's chapter 6, Closing the Year. So Magus, the town, is about to do its closing of the year celebration. But this year there's something else as well. A sense of wrongness that no one can quite voice. Folks who never had a nightmare in their lives will awake screaming with them during the week of Fin de Año. Men who consider themselves peaceful will find themselves not only in fistfights, but instigating them. Discontented boys who would only have dreamed of running away in other years will this year actually do it. And most will not come back after the first night spent sleeping raw. There is a sense, inarticulate but very much there, that things have gone amiss this season. It is the closing of the year. It is also the closing of the peace. For it is here, in the sleepy outworld barony of Magus, that Midworld's last great conflict will shortly begin. It is from here that the blood will begin to flow. In 2 years no more, the world as it has been will be swept away. It starts here. From its field of roses, the Dark Tower cries out in its beast's voice. Time is a face on the water. We don't know what's going to happen in a couple of weeks, in a month, in 6 months, in a year, 2027, a couple of years from now, whatever. We don't know what's going on. We don't have control over that. We only have control over our little space. A lot of people pride themselves on this sheepdog virtue or something, I guess. They're always armed. They've got their med kits. They're whatever. But guys, there's more than just that. If that's all you've got, if all you've got is a gun and a tourniquet and whatever, but emotionally you're not able to be, there for other people, you're not able to be vulnerable, you're not able to reach out, you're not able to meet other people who maybe disagree with you on some pretty fundamental things and see them as human beings, then You're just an animal, a glorified, intelligent animal. That's my opinion, but I really think we, collectively, can do better than what we've got going on right now. There's no reason for divisiveness. Yes, I understand that politically some people have some pretty intense feelings tied into political parties, but I think we can do better being united and finding common ground and not spending so much time dealing with the places where we don't have things in common. They're important. I'm not saying they're not important. But if you're going to spend time looking for ways to oppose each other, you should probably spend around that same amount of time looking for common ground as well. That's all. It's my opinion. Anyway, stay safe out there, guys. Do your part and train with what you carry. See ya.